I'm going to send it over to Tarly. Tarly Dawn, she's a sophomore at Babson College, to introduce our first speaker of the day, Becca Peters, who's going to talk to us about using mindfulness as a pathway to self-compassion and empathy. Take it away, Tarly.
Thank you. Becca is an international mentor and organizational consultant and a lifelong student of and practitioner of Buddhism. Because we are an organization dedicated to higher education, I'm going to start with her degrees. Becca received her undergraduate degree in counseling and psychology from UC Santa Barbara, and then earned her Master of Social Work from the University of Utah. She is a psychotherapist and life coach at a private practice in Montecito, California, near LA. She currently teaches at UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center and also at the Compassion Cultivation Training at Stanford and the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. One fun fact about Becca, she loves to dance. She started learning ballet at age 49 and loves all types of dance. Got to Be Real by Cherry Lane is her all-time favorite song to dance to. Thank you so much, Becca, for being here today to kick off this summit. We are so honored to have you.
Wow, thank you so much for the introduction. I feel honored just by being here with each of you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I have to start off by saying the meditation was so spectacular for me because I accessed my heart, the sense of heartfulness. That was the choice that I chose for my mantra. I feel so connected to my heart. And so I just want to thank you again for leading that beautiful meditation. We spend so much of our lives in our heads, and where the wisdom resides truly is in our hearts and in our bodies. So I want to take a brief moment. First of all, who's heard of that song, You've Got to Be Real? Just raise of hands. I know I'm old, but okay. So I'm on my phone. I had a computer difficulty this morning, so I'm moving my screen. If you see me doing this, it's because I'm looking at your faces. Okay. I also would like to, just before we begin, I'd like everyone to close their eyes. And I'd like to ask you to answer a question. And I'm asking you to close your eyes because I'd like to give some confidentiality to your answer. So how many of you have felt stressed in the last week? Please, with closed eyes, raise your hand so I see who has stressed in the last week or so. Okay. Okay. All right. You go ahead and open your eye. Basically, everyone felt some stress in the last week or so. To me means you're alive and you're paying attention. And it's also a reminder that we are all connected. Sometimes we can feel alone in our stress. We're all connected. So the way that we access empathy, which I'd like to first define, beautiful, beautiful suggestions in the chat. Would be willing to unmute yourself and share with us what you think empathy is. And again, there's no wrong answer. I'd love to hear someone's voice this morning.
I think empathy is more than just having sympathy for someone. I think you have to put yourself in the person's shoe and know what they are feeling to be able to understand what they are going through.
That's beautiful, beautiful. I couldn't have said it any better. And so empathy is feeling the troubles. I'm looking at the chat, is feeling the troubles of others, understanding deeply in heart with one another. I believe it's being with one another. Okay. This is a really beautiful opportunity for me to understand each of you. I'm noticing the chat box that no one's putting that we have to have the exact same experience as someone else, which is amazing because empathy really doesn't require us to have the exact same painful situation or experience. But what empathy does is it allows us to connect to the humanity or the emotion of that difficult feeling. Everyone with raise of hand or shaking of head. So for example, if Grace has had an experience of stubbing her toe this morning, before maybe she was on her way to her computer and she stubbed her toe, I didn't have to stub my toe this morning to understand the pain that Grace might have experienced, because I understand what an injury feels like. So that's the way I access empathy. That's cater to us that empathy doesn't require us to be sitting in the exact same context, but we can connect as human beings with our feelings. Okay. Does empathy sound clear? Does it feel clear to you? Raise of hands. Okay. Okay. How do we access empathy? What do you think? How do we find where is empathy? Is it in our heads? Is it in our bodies? Where is it? I mean, is it up here? Where is empathy? How do we find it? And I'm curious to hear from someone how and where do we access empathy? Sometimes, and I'll give you an entry, sometimes we can figure that out by knowing, when do I feel the least empathic toward others? When do I feel the least empathic? So how do we access empathy?
We access empathy through our hearts because it's with our hearts we feel how others feel and understand how they feel.
Amazing. You're hot. I mean, come on. I didn't know this was gonna find like someone to come on and work with me, but yes, absolutely. We find empathy in our hearts. And we also find it through presence. So if we're really distracted or disconnected from our own hearts, it's really hard for us to attune to another. So I'd like to share a few definitions with you. But first of all, I want to just take a moment, and I'd like to introduce a quick practice for us. It's called stop. So if you don't mind just stopping what we're doing, closing our eyes for another moment or two, and letting go for a moment of any tension in your body. Feeling the soles of your feet on the floor. Feeling the breath moving in and out of your body. So the S in the acronym STOP, it's just a suggestion to stop what we're doing. The T invites us to take a breath or maybe a few breaths. It can be nice to breathe in through the nose if that's accessible to you. And as we breathe out, it can be helpful to imagine that we're breathing out of a straw through our mouths. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then the O in the word stop is a very gentle invitation to observe how we're feeling what we're noticing in our body without any kind of judgment. So perhaps you're noticing a little tension in your neck, or perhaps you're noticing a little fatigue. Or perhaps you're noticing a little distraction without any kind of judgment, scanning your body, noticing how you're feeling. You might notice sounds or the temperature of the air in the room. And then next, I'd like to invite you to choose the attitude or the quality that you would like to bring into the next moment. So for example, if you're feeling a little sleepy, maybe you could be kind to yourself and allow yourself to be sleepy. So maybe I'll bring in kindness, self-kindness into the next moment. Or maybe if you're finding yourself a little distracted, maybe you could say, oh, I'm going to bring presence into this next moment without any kind of judgment. And choosing that quality that is loving and unique to you. And then we come to the letter P in stop, which is to proceed. And we can proceed with the quality and the presence that we've just cultivated in that brief mindfulness practice. So go ahead and open your eyes if they've been closed. Congratulations, we've just practiced mindfulness through this brief and very helpful acronym, STOP. We stop, we take a breath, we observe our inner world and our outer world, and then we choose what quality can help me in this next moment. And then we bring that quality forward and then we proceed. So one of the ways that we can cultivate presence is by building in these micro moments of mindfulness throughout the day. How many of you have noticed, just raise of hand, that you felt a little sleepy? I'm seeing some yawns. Again, this is like a no judgment zone, right? Okay, let's see. I'm looking for other hands. Another fun fact about me, besides the fact that I like to dance, is that I'm not a super early morning person. But I'm super awake this morning because I'm so energized and happy to be with you. And I just wanted to take a moment to identify another definition for you of mindfulness. But before I do, I would love to get a check on how much time I have, because I can talk to you for hours about these practices. And I know we started early, so who can tell me what time I have?
Yeah, you've got a full 20 minutes we can do.
Okay, so I'll be ending right at the top of the hour, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. All right, so we've talked about empathy that you've defined beautifully. It's putting ourselves in another's shoes. And I'm suggesting that we don't have to have the exact same contextual experience to do that, but we can be empathic just by connecting with humanity and what it feels like to feel difficult or challenging emotions. How we cultivate empathy is through presence, first of all. So if I'm distracted, it's really difficult for me to show up and feel connected to you. And I want to reiterate, our time together and what I'm sharing with you, it's non-judgmental time, okay? This is like the no judgment zone. We're learning together, we're connecting together. So there is no judgment here. I just want, really, this is a safe space for us. And why is that important? Because if we have a safe space, our central nervous system, our automatic nervous system, the parts of our body that allow us to feel safe, those are activated. We want to activate our parasympathetic nervous system through the breath and through an invitation that we have a safe space together. And that when we feel that safe space in our body, our hearts can begin to open and our minds can begin to open to learning and being curious. So just want to state that again. So presence is the way we activate or access rather empathy. So just take a moment and I want you to notice, what are you feeling in your fingertips? Just take a moment to get into your bodies, just making sure we are accessing presence, noticing your sits bones through that beautiful meditation. We were invited to check in with our hearts, soles of the feet, and the breath. Okay. So I'm feeling present in my own body, and now I can feel potentially present and empathic to others. So I'd like to have us take a moment. This might feel strange, but take a moment and look around, depending on what device you're on, and take a moment and look around at the faces of others on this call. And just be kind of curious. I wonder where Alexa is. She's sitting in her room. I wonder what she's feeling. Just take a beautiful few moments and look at the faces of the people on this chat with us and see if you might bring the quality of curiosity, which is one of the ways we can access empathy. I'm going to scan again. I'm looking at Barbara. Oh, wow. I'm looking at each of you, and I'm really curious about what you're thinking and feeling, where you are, what your experience has been, the moments leading up to this call. Caroline, hello. My goodness, what a beautiful group. Souls. Look at this. Amazing. Okay. Okay. What does it feel like? I'd love someone to share with me what it feels like to actually look at one another and bring this quality of wonderment, of curiosity. Anyone can speak.
I can share what I think. While looking at everyone on the screen, I feel like it must have been like better if we like would meet in person. It reminds me back when I did the leadership training at the Barack that brought us to. It feel like more connection. I mean, I don't say that it's like less connection here, but it wouldn't be nicer to feel actually like physically touching each other, seeing each other, and we would have a lot to talk to each other during the breaks time, that time, if that, if this time we happen to be in person. So that's how I feel like my first instinct when I look at everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, as you say that, even though I don't know you, I feel a sensation in my heart. And interestingly, empathy is often a sensation that we feel a sense of tingling in the heart. Anyone else feeling that sensation of heartfelt tingling or yeah. So I'm hearing a couple of things. I'm hearing when we bring the quality of curiosity and presence to another, we're awakened to different feelings. And in this particular case, I heard longing, a longing to be in person. Thank you for bringing that forward. And also a longing to connect. This is the felt sense of empathy. Okay. Mindfulness is one of the ways that we build presence. And the definition of mindfulness is paying attention on purpose with certain qualities. And you may or may not want to write this down to refer to. No pressure, no stress. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, choosing to pay attention with certain qualities. And those qualities are curiosity, kindness, non-judgment. I'm not judging how I feel. I'm not judging how you are, who you are. And the willingness to be with things just as they are in this moment. So there's this kind of neutral observation and allowing things, myself, you, allowing ourselves to be just as we are in this very moment. That's mindfulness. So mindfulness, these moments help us to build presence. Presence allows us to connect to one another. And then we can bring in empathy, and that allows us to connect to our hearts. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So I also want to say that on my screen on my phone, I can see myself and 3 others. So I'm going to rely on the chat box if someone has a question or is needing to raise their hand, because I can't see everyone at the same time. Okay. Okay. So let's take a moment and identify what the word compassion means. Because I'm looking at empathy, the words empathy, engagement, and being energized. So what happens when we feel empathy for someone? What's the next step? So I'm going to say, wow, okay, there's Hannah. And I'm looking at Hannah, I'm feeling this sense of empathy for her. Hannah, would you be willing, can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to share something that isn't traumatic, but something maybe in the last couple of days that you've experienced that's been a little bit stressful? Because stress is one of the things that we're all connecting, and maybe it's putting this beautiful event together, but something that's we maybe could relate to in some way that's been a little challenging for you.
Sure. An elderly neighbor of mine fell and is in the hospital.
Oh. I'm so sorry to hear that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Can we all feel a sense of empathy for Hannah's neighbor? Yeah, raise of hands. It must feel scary for that person, right? I can feel that. I can feel that. So I'm going to utilize mindfulness for a moment to scan my body and notice what it feels like, where I feel this sensation of empathy in my body. And I'd like to invite you to do the same. And take a few deep breaths and notice where you feel this emotion in your body of empathy. And then I don't know about you, but it's highly likely that you too are feeling this sense of compassion, which tends to come after empathy. Compassion is the desire for someone else's pain or suffering to be alleviated. So if I could, I would stand up and I would leave my seat and I would go to wherever Hannah's neighbor is. And I would say, how may I help you? I'd like your pain to be alleviated. Okay. Well, I can't do that in this moment, but I sure can wish for that to happen. So compassion, so we have a working definition for this as you build upon your day. Compassion is feeling empathy and then wishing we could do something to alleviate that person's suffering. Sometimes we can get up and we can help, and other times we can't. This person might be across the globe. It makes me think of John Prine's song, Hello in There, on elderly loneliness. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. We don't have to be able to be physically with someone to be compassionate. We can all sit here and be compassionate now toward Hannah's neighbor, just by feeling empathy and having the desire to wish that person well, or to wish that person be free of suffering. Okay. Let's take a moment and let's actually do that, if that's okay. I'd like all of us to bring either Hannah's neighbor to mind, or someone else in your life or in the world, or perhaps the entire world, or all young people who are in your position, who are struggling with transitioning in this pandemic, in this really wild world that we're living in. Remembering that we're not alone, but that we're all together. So let's take a moment, closing our eyes and feeling that sense of compassion for perhaps one person, or maybe it's for all of us on this call. Knowing that we're all working with something challenging in this moment, in large ways and small ways. And if it's comfortable, one of the ways that we can activate that neural network is to bring a hand to heart or a hand to belly, if self-touch feels comfortable, bringing hand to body. If it doesn't feel comfortable, please don't do it. But it's a way that we can activate that system within inside of ourselves that says, I am here. I am with you. And whomever you're holding in your mind and heart, taking a few breaths and sending them your wishes for their suffering to be alleviated, or at the very least, for that person or persons to not feel alone in their suffering. And breathing, feeling the soles of your feet as you breathe. As we breathe, okay. And staying with this presence and this attunement toward whether it's Hannah's elderly neighbor, whether it's Alexa, Grace, whomever you're holding in your mind, your heart, I'd like to take a moment. We have a few moments left together, and I'd like to identify self-compassion, because in order for us to feel energized and engaged, we have to also identify our own suffering and meet that with these qualities of mindfulness, compassion, empathy, so that we feel connected to others, and perhaps even then energized to go out in the world without feeling so overwhelmed, but to go out and to do work and be of service. So I'd like to take maybe a minute or so and invite you to check in with yourself. Just notice how you are feeling. If we know that compassion is the desire to alleviate someone else's suffering, we can imagine that self-compassion is the deep, loving, kind desire for our own suffering to be alleviated. And so take a moment, and if there's anything in your own life or experience in these moments, in this day, in this week, in this month of this new year, maybe it's just the simple stress of needing to use the restroom right now and you can't wait for the break so you can get up and go to the restroom. That's a moment of suffering. Can we identify it and send ourselves wishes for our own pain or suffering to be alleviated, remembering that we're not alone? So we access presence through our breath and through tuning into our own bodies so that we can show up for ourselves, which then allows us to show up for others. So if your eyes are still closed, I welcome you to open them. And I'd love to hear, as I think we have maybe 60 seconds, is there anything that anyone would like to share as we've woven this tapestry together of how we build empathy and presence and how that actually leads to compassion and engagement? And perhaps you're feeling maybe a little more energized. Is there anything that anyone would like to share about your own experience as we wrap? I'll ask another way. Could this be useful? These terms and practices, and maybe it's just this practice of stop. Might this be useful to you in your day, today, in today?
I don't know if somebody else wants to speak.
How about
Can I-
Noella? Do you want to start?
Yeah, so personally, when I was trying to cultivate empathy and to feel empathy and picture other people and try to put myself in other people's shoes, it was a lot easier for me than to practice self-empathy and self-compassion. And I couldn't identify where I was suffering or what are the things that I would like to connect to with myself, but I could see it in other people. And that made me realize that I needed to practice that more.
That brings tears to my eyes and to my heart. And I'm seeing some people say, me too. Yeah, me too. So this is the beautiful thing about practice, is that it's something that we can do over and over again. Thank you for sharing. It lit something up inside of you. Oh, what about myself? Oh, what about myself? And if I had the entire day, I would snuggle in with each of you and we would spend all this time talking about self-compassion. And I do believe it's going to be discussed and practiced within this day. So I'm really glad. One of the things that we say at Stanford is we describe compassion as a moistening of the heart. Compassion primes and moistens the heart. And so your heart is being primed to then maybe say, well, I understand it about others. And now I'd like to spend some time understanding it more about my own self. So I think we're off to a really good start. I can feel that sense of moistening in your heart, and a curiosity to understand, well, how does this apply to me? So I commend you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else before we end? I want to be sensitive of time. Grace, is my time, Hannah, my time up?
Yes, and I just want to say thank you so much, Becca. That was wonderful. Great way to have our first speaker of the day. So thank you so much. And we so appreciate you being here today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very, very much. I wish you all the best, and see if you can stay in that space of curious, a moistened, curious heart as you move throughout the rest of your day to day. And again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Becca. Yes, curiosity and kindness. I love that.